right, guys, when it comes to what's going on in politics today, looks like over 40 cities have already begun to implement universal basic income. What do I mean by that? They're giving away over $500 a month for the next year. And if this works out when it comes to giving out these $500 a month stimulus payments, could they be implementing this nationwide? We're going to talk about that. And even though job numbers have increased and more people have gotten their vaccinations, why is it that President Biden's numbers still continue to plummet? We're going to talk about that here on Mostly Money. Well, my name is Andre. You're watching Mostly Money, where you're going to get all facts, no fake, no phony, and no fluffed up information when it comes to what's going on in politics today. And if you're interested in always getting the truth on a daily basis, well, you've made it to the right channel. All you need to do for yourself is one thing: subscribe. Click that notification bell so you get the latest and greatest information coming from Mostly Money. We're going to always be here for you and your loved ones. Let's get started. Yes, over 40 cities, starting with Chicago and LA, are giving out $500 a month in stimulus money for the next year. Chicago is going to be giving away to over 5,000 families that are making less than $35,000 a year. And Los Angeles has decided to give 5,000 individuals $500 a month for the next year. And for 3,200 families, they're giving $1,000 a month. But this is not uncommon because this is known as universal basic income. And what is that? Well, universal basic income is money from your government with no strings attached.
Do you guys want some free money? Excuse me, would you like some free money? Free money?
No, thank you.
No? Free money?
Free money.
It's free.
Some for my friend too.
You can take some for your friend.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like some free money, sir? Okay. Wow, we've got a lot of takers here. Handing out free money sounds like a pretty radical idea, but it's actually an economic concept gaining a lot of traction around the world. We're talking about universal basic income. Universal basic income is pretty much what the name suggests, an income for everyone in the form of a cash transfer, no strings attached. Finland is among a handful of countries experimenting with universal basic income as a way to address unemployment in the country. Meet our fictional character, Lena. She works in a salmon factory in Finland. Then an economic downturn hits. People can't afford to buy as much salmon, and Lena loses her job. Under the Universal Basic Income Scheme, Lena would get around $650 a month from the government. She can use that $650 to cover living expenses while she looks for a new job. But even once she gets a new job, she would continue to receive the cash. A key feature of the Universal Basic Income is that you can spend the money however you like. So in the Finland example, you could take that $650 and spend it on about a third of month's rent here in Helsinki, or you could spend it on 100 cans of smoked herring and 26 bottles of red mulled wine mix. We'll take 26 of these, please. The idea of handing out cash to every citizen isn't new. Philosopher Thomas Paine proposed the idea of payments to every person all the way back in 1797. Martin Luther King Jr. fought for a guaranteed income in the 1960s, and even free market champion Milton Friedman endorsed the negative income tax, similar to basic income, as a way to reduce welfare costs and bureaucracy. But lately, tech titans in Silicon Valley, like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, are some of the biggest advocates of the idea. They argue a universal basic income could provide a cushion to an estimated millions of people who could lose their jobs if they're replaced by automation or by robots. Hello. It's clear robots are already changing the future of work. Some in Silicon Valley say universal basic income could give workers an opportunity to retrain for today's workforce.
And even though you have whole countries such as Finland and other areas around the world that have already implemented or at least started to experiment with universal basic income stimulus payments, the United States could be on the list of countries that are thinking about doing this. What I mean by that is we already have over 40 cities nationwide that have already started this year to experiment with giving away monthly stimulus payments. We have cities such as New Orleans, Newark, New Jersey, Minneapolis, Compton, California, Denver, Colorado, just to name a few that have already implemented it. But there's another city that started early with this experiment, Stockton, California.
Can we just start with that result in terms of employment? Why do you think that was? That people who received this universal basic income found jobs more readily than people who did not?
Well, Josh, first, let's just scream that stat from the mountaintop. I've spent the last 3 years arguing with people about how $500 would not make people lazy, would not make people not work. And the reason is simple. When you're in an economically precarious situation, even taking a day off your part-time job that's hourly with no paid time off is a risk of losing money that you need to pay the bills that are going to come. Or the $500 was used for some folks for childcare or for reliable transportation to get the transmission fixed. To get to work. So I'm not surprised, and I'm so incredibly proud of the folks in Stockton for showing all these myths we have about why people struggle and who are the people who struggle in our economy are false. People aren't lazy. People aren't waiting for the government to save them. People just need a fair shot in the economic floor. I think the data shows that guaranteed income is a powerful tool by which to do that.
Stockton is a community in the Central Valley of California. If you're taking Interstate 5 kind of east of the Bay Area, basically, you run right into Stockton on your way between Sacramento and Los Angeles. Where have you seen the impacts of this experiment show up in town? Were there places where economically you could tell that people were spending their money or using their money from this program?
Yeah, unfortunately, because it was just 125 people in a city of 315,000, we weren't able to see those impacts, but anecdotally from the stories of the individuals, we heard impact. One of my favorite stories is the story of Tomas, who was laid off from his job during COVID, and speaks about how the $500 was a needed bridge during the pandemic so that he was able to continue to pay bills while looking for another job. Or another young lady, Zane, who had a fever and a cough in late February, early March. And she made the choice to stay at home and not go to work because the doctor had told her to do so. And she said she was only able to do that because of the $500. And it turns out she actually was COVID positive. And if she did not have that guaranteed income, she would have been at her job as an essential worker and possibly infecting her coworkers and members of the community. So I think for in terms of the impact in Stockton, it's been important for these 125 people, but also for the broader narrative that, again, people who struggle in our economy isn't because they are somehow deficient. It isn't because they're dumb. It isn't because they're lazy. It's because, as we know, the economy does not work for working people, and that poverty is a function of policy choices, not individual work.
Now, the question that I have for you and for the comments section, should the United States start giving out universal basic income, which is a payment of up to whatever it may be, $500 or $1,000 a month for at least a year for individuals to be able to get back on their feet so that we can stimulate the economy the way that it actually should be? Because right now, President Biden's approval rating isn't looking too good. So this might just be something that can help him out.
We have a lot to get to today, and we begin with a brand new CBS News poll. It doesn't have a lot of good news politically for President Biden. His approval rating is at 44%, his lowest in our polling since he took office. And it's the economy that is taking a toll on the president's standing as prices for food, gas, and other items continue to rise. 67% of Americans now disapprove of the president's handling of inflation. Joining us now to discuss it is CBS News Director of Surveys and Elections, Anthony Salvanto. Anthony, the economy is in recovery, but many Americans apparently don't feel that way.
Good morning, Margaret. That's right, because to many Americans, when they rate the economy, it's what's right in front of them, the prices they're paying, in this case, at that gas pump or that cash register. Let me tell you a story about views on the economy over the course of this year. Back in the winter, views were low, but then as people thought the pandemic was easing and optimism was on the upswing as we headed into the summer, views of the economy started to rise. Then, as we headed into the fall, in our polling, well, people started feeling the effects of inflation and views of the economy started to dip again back down to the lower level where they are today. Now, how does this relate to President Biden? Well, when you look at how people evaluate him in handling a range of issues, on handling the economy specifically, on handling inflation specifically, he's underwater at 39% on the economy, at 33% good on handling inflation. And then the kicker here, Margaret, is that when you ask people how they're evaluating Joe Biden, which criteria, they say top answers, the economy and inflation.
Anthony, just how significantly is inflation impacting Americans' lives?
So first of all, people say that they notice the things they usually buy are costing more. They notice that some things are hard to get on store shelves. And then you say, well, what impact does that have on people? And for a majority, they tell us that that's either a difficulty or even a hardship. That's particularly the case for people in middle and low incomes. So what do they say they're doing about it? Well, a lot of folks say that they're cutting back on spending, maybe holding off buying one of those big ticket items, maybe even curtailing their holiday spending a little bit. And the other thing here, Margaret, is people know why there is inflation. They tell us they know that there are supply chain issues, that there's pent-up demand after the pandemic. So those are market forces. But as we often see in polling and opinion, even if it's market forces, people sometimes want some relief from those forces. And that's where they turn to political leaders and say they want them to do something about it, Margaret.
Right. You didn't cause it, but I want you to fix it.
And now, as I mentioned before, President Biden may be able to sit back and say that he has been able to get over 70% of Americans vaccinated. He may be able to say that on his watch, the job market has started to turn itself around for the better, and the unemployment rate is at an all-time low compared to last year. But President Biden still has to realize that the rate of inflation and the fact that the supply chain has still been clogged up has not been able to help his numbers out over the last month. And speaking of last month, the last month of the year, December, is going to be a month that we are going to be looking closely to on this channel. Because remember, they've got the infrastructure bill that's coming up. They've got because remember, they do have the infrastructure bill coming up that they've been working on. They still have the debt ceiling. They still have the federal budget, and they still have billions of dollars of stimulus money that have been sent out to the states that has not been distributed to you yet. So during the month of December, make sure you subscribe to the channel because we're going to keep you posted. Well, I'm on my way to the comment section, and I'll meet you guys there. And if I don't get a chance to speak to you and you don't get a chance to speak to me, we are not going to fret about it because I'll be speaking to you again.